Hey there friend, back again at Costco. In the last video we did rotisserie chicken. In this video we are going to see what we can make with 2 of these 6-pound packs of ground beef. I love those because I can brown some, make meatballs and meatloaves. We're just going to see what kind of mix of meals we can put together with these 12 pounds. I just left the gym, hence the bright red face and the sweaty hair look. But I'm hoping to capitalize on that extra energy and motivation that comes from being at the gym. I'm going to capitalize on that and get going with getting this ground beef prepped in my kitchen, among other things that I've got to do for the blog today. So let's head on into the store and grab that ground beef and get to work in the kitchen. All right, we got 2 packs. I'm gonna grab a couple other things that we need and then get to the house and get to browning this ground beef and making a couple of meals worth of meatballs and meatloaf too. Okay, we're back from the store and I have my 2 packs of the ground beef. I also got out my 2 largest pots, the Dutch oven and the stock pot. And we are going to probably brown 1 and a bit of the second package. So I'm gonna probably try to do 4 pounds into each of these pots right here. And I'll show you a couple tricks of how to do that as well as how I season my ground beef. So we're gonna hop into that here next. All right, so with these 2 pots, I am going to probably divide this package in half into each of these 2 large pots. And then I will add more from the other package. I think I'm just gonna kind of pinch and drop it in there. Then we will get the heat going and I'll show you how I'm going to season this ground beef as well as get this going so that we don't overcook any parts of this ground beef. Whenever you're browning a large amount of ground beef, it can be a little bit tricky and I have some tricks for you. I do want to save some of this for meatloaf, so I think I'm going to probably save about 3 pounds for meatloaf and meatballs, so I'm going to set this aside. We'll do that in a bit. I'm going to take my 2 meat mashers. I have 2 of these. I'm probably going to use this one for the meatloaf. I like to use these for meatloaf as well as for browning ground beef, and I'm going to use this one for both of these 2 pots. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just break this up and get it to cover the bottom of the pot. In both of these, that bottom layer will start to brown. Now, I don't want there to be any over browning happening. So I am going to do this. I'm going to add about a half a cup of water to each pot. It will steam off completely, don't worry. It's not gonna make like a soup or anything. It's gonna steam off, but it's gonna help keep anything from over browning, overcooking on the bottom of either of these 2 pots. These are different pots as well. Definitely need water if you're using stainless. I probably could get away with not using any water with this Dutch oven, but I'm gonna add it just to be safe and also because I'm gonna be doing other things like making meatloaf or meatballs here in a second. Okay, I'm gonna continue to break this up. Get that water down to the bottom of the pan. Again, it's gonna steam off. Okay, next what we need to do, season. When I'm doing seasoning for ground beef, I kind of have a little ratio that I like to use. A pound of ground beef, we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of minced red onion, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. So this is 8-ish, 4 and 4, I think. So I'm gonna do 4 teaspoons of garlic powder, 4 tablespoons of minced onion, dried onion, into this. If you have another seasoning blend that you like to use, go ahead and use about a teaspoon of that seasoning blend for this. The garlic and onion, I'm pretty much gonna include with whatever ground beef recipe I'm having anyways. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pre-season it now. You can always add any more seasonings at the time that you go to cook it later. But for now, that's gonna be my ratio. So let's get to adding that. I'm a bit of a palm measurer, so I'm just gonna add palm measuring. A teaspoon, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, I'm saying it out loud because I will lose track. Whenever you're videoing something live, you kind of lose track. It's real easy to lose track of things. Okay, and then the same for the onion, except I'm gonna do a tablespoon. It's a little bit more in my palm. These are larger pieces of onion anyway, so we need a little more. Get all that good. See, 4, if I don't count, see, that's what happens. I just said that, look what I did. Okay, this is 3, this is 4. Yeah, there's a reason to my madness. all the time. All right, let's get this seasoning incorporated in here. Just mix it in. You'll start to see it's already starting to brown. I'll come show it to you in a minute. I know I'm way over here, sorry. I don't really have a place to put my camera over here because it's the cabinet. I suppose I could put it in the microwave, but that'd be awkward, right? You can kind of hear that water. See, that's one of the reasons that we add it. We don't want it to get charred onto the bottom of our pot. You can always add a little more water if you think you need it. You know, cooking on high, this is gonna boil off pretty quick. So I might add another 1/4 cup or so, if need be, here in a little bit. We're just gonna let these guys sit and then get started on the meatloaf and meatballs. Which one should we make? I don't know, we're about to find out. We'll see. I've shifted a little bit and we're gonna do making meatloaf right here on the countertop. So I'm gonna adjust a camera angle here and then we will get to making this. So you'll hear me talking and demonstrating here on the countertop. Okay, I did just turn that over on the stovetop really quickly, so we should have plenty of time to get this meatloaf mixed up while we finish browning this. Here's this guy. This is the masher that I like to use. It just does a good job of breaking up the meat. And so this is about 3 pounds. So I'm going to add to this 3 eggs, probably about maybe a 1/2 to 2/3 cup of milk, and seasoning, breadcrumb, and I'm actually gonna also add ranch. I usually do Italian seasoning, but our family's been on a bit of a ranch kick lately, like ranch mac and cheese. Because this is 3 pounds, I'm gonna do a cup. These are gluten-free breadcrumbs. I'm gonna do a cup of these. I'm gonna do another tablespoon. Actually, I'll do probably a 1.5 tablespoons, since this is 3 pounds. We need our onion and garlic in there. I'll do a 1.5 teaspoons of garlic-ish. I think we'll do 2 tablespoons of ranch. No, we're gonna do 3. Because this is 3 pounds. I know, that was like just my meatloaf math right there for you. The breadcrumb is gonna soak up some of the egg and the milk. What did I say, 1/2 cup? 2/3 of a cup? Sure. That's gonna be just fine. All right, and then you can use this, or if you wanted to get another spoon, you can use your hands. I just like these breadcrumbs are a little chunky. They're trying to jump ship here. You can just mix it like this, and then I'm gonna show you how I do meatloaf for the freezer here in just a sec. Just mixing all this in, just little twists. That's what I like about this guy, because it just does a good job of mixing it. You don't have to get your hands over it. It's pretty great, right? Pretty great. Okay, I have 2 loaf pans, and they're upside down for a reason. I'll explain. And I have the meatloaf ready to go here. So, foil. I'm gonna freeze these meatloaves in a foil pack. This way they're frozen in the shape of this pan and I don't have to leave the pan in the freezer. Once it's frozen, I can take the foil pack out, transfer it to a baggie, or just depending on how long I'm gonna leave it in the freezer, I might just leave it wrapped in the foil. And then I don't have to, once it starts to thaw, you can peel back the foil and place the loaf back into this same pan, okay? So the reason that we're doing this upside down is because I need to get the shape of the pan. So I'm gonna mold the foil around the pan upside down. And then it's a lot easier to nest it in here, like this, okay? And this is enough to wrap around it, so that's perfect. This one, we're gonna do the same thing. This one has sharper corners, so I don't wanna tear the foil. I'm just gonna be a little careful. Like that. And then just nest that in here. This way I can take my loaf pans back out of the freezer and I can use them for, you know, baking, banana bread, things like that. A lot of baking around here. Okay. Now we can transfer this into these. Should be able to do about half into each pan. All right, so this pan is wider and this pan is taller. So I'm just gonna kind of press it in here until we get it to be about 2/3 to 3/4 full. I'm not gonna add a top or a glaze at this time. Oftentimes I'll do like a ketchup or sweetened ketchup barbecue type of a glaze to go on top. I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm gonna decide on that later. Also because I did a ranch flavoring with this. I guess ketchup would work at the top of that. Just straight ketchup. So when I go to bake these, I might just do a ketchup drizzle on top. This is perfect. You could also use this same recipe to make meatballs. And yes, I will talk about freezing meatloaf or meatballs cooked or uncooked. Okay, I'm obviously freezing these uncooked. You can cook them. If you are gonna cook them, I would recommend cooking, letting it cool down, slicing it into meal-sized portions, and then freezing it as like a little loaf. That's if you're cooking. Kind of the same story goes for meatballs. Cook, cool down completely to reduce freezer burn. Once they're cooled down, you can line them up on a tray or even like in a bag, like flat, so that way you can easily get out either all the meatballs or however many you need for your particular meal that you're making. I personally prefer to freeze raw. It's just less time right now in the kitchen, and then I can decide later what I'm going to do with it. And then we're just gonna wrap. This is barely long enough, look. I pulled it and I was like, that's gonna be short, but we're gonna use it anyways. This one's fine. Just wrap it up like that. And then we're gonna freeze these two things just like this. Again, once this meatloaf kind of brick is frozen, you can take the pan out. I'll rinse the pan off, clean it, and then I can use it for whatever baking that I might need to use it for. But that is how we are freezing this meatloaf. And finally, I'm gonna show you how we're going to freeze the browned ground beef that we have just finished browning on the stovetop. Okay, I just moved these two pots over here so that it will cool down a little faster. We need this to cool down completely before we can add them into the freezer. Okay, I got my bag holders and bags set up. These are life changer, game changer in the kitchen, especially if you do a lot of freezer meals. Easily store them in your drawer, and then they hold your bag open while you distribute. In this case, it's going to be our ground beef or make freezer meals depending on what you're doing. Okay, I'm also going to use, I did the draining with the flexi ladle. I'm also gonna use this to evenly divide. I decided to take this 8 pounds into 6 meals. That should give us a little bit for leftovers, but I probably could also stretch this out to be 8 meals, depending, but I think for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and evenly divide. A couple scoops. I like using the ladle because it scoops a lot. The flexi ladle also helps get into that corner. Can you have corner in a round pan? I'm not sure about that. But anyways, it just makes sure that it's nice and even. You can see everything's cooled down. These have been sitting out for maybe about 20-30 minutes. I've stirred them a couple times to help release some of the steam from the bottom and the heat from the bottom of the pan. I should be doing my counting out loud thing, but I think I've done this evenly now. All right, we're gonna move on to the next, and then I'll probably switch over from here into that second pot. A little extra elbow grease on that one. I did just label these with just ground beef. Here, if you wanted to turn it into more of a freezer meal or a meal starter, this is where you could add a can of sloppy joe sauce, a jar of marinara. You could do like taco seasoning and diced tomatoes and green chilies. There's different ways, whatever ground beef meals that your family likes. I'm gonna do like a half scoop here so I can make sure that we get this evenly with what's these last 2 bags. See how handy this is? Magic. Okay, so that ended up working out perfectly. And there we have it. So let me unline them up. So now we're just gonna free the bag of the holder. I usually flat freeze, so sorry if that's a bit of a glare. So I'm gonna flat freeze and then fold it, press out the air, and then just seal it off. Press out a little bit more air. And there's one, and we're just gonna repeat that for the remaining, it'll end up being a total of 6. So we got 6 ground beef meals, or will be in the future ground beef meals, as well as 2 meatloaves, which for us, that's really 2 meals, or like 1 dinner plus a bunch of leftovers for lunch. Let's call it 10 total meals with that 12 pounds of ground beef, which is not too shabby. I will take it. I love having this beef ready to go in the freezer. I can decide how to cook it later. I love that. I have that flexibility. I can just see what's in the pantry, quickly thaw this. That's another reason to thaw this. Flat like this is it will thaw really quickly. You can just run some warm water over this, and then if you need to reheat it, you could just transfer it into the skillet and then add, I did this one upside down. This is what happens when I get to talking. Okay, you can run some warm water over that, and a couple minutes later, or even just put it in a tray, a quick thawing, a large bowl of water, and it will thaw really quickly in the water, and then you can just transfer the ground beef to reheat in this skillet and add whatever other ingredients you were gonna add, like, you know, spaghetti sauce or taco meat or salvia or whatever. I keep doing these upside down. So that's that. That's how you take advantage of this great price, at least at present, for the large packs of ground beef from the warehouse store. In this case, I got mine at Costco. And then you transform it into cooked beef and meatloaf or meatballs. And then you're setting yourself up for success in the future. And that's what we're all about around here. We're about saving money. To recap, we browned about 8 pounds of ground beef with some garlic powder and minced red onions, and then let that cool down. I drained off a little bit of the extra fat and liquid, and then divided that up into what ended up being 6 meals worth of ground beef that I will add another sauce or flavors to later. But for now, I have flat frozen those in there in the freezer so I can quickly thaw them and get them cooked for dinner. I also made 2 meatloaves with kind of a ranch seasoned style meatloaf. I wrapped that in foil so that I can get those pans back out of the freezer, and then I will let that thaw and place the loaf back into the same pan and then bake it until it is cooked through. I hope you found this helpful. I'm all about helping you spend less money on groceries, spend less on protein, in this case, getting a decent price for a big bulk of protein, ground beef, and getting that prepared and into the freezer for you to use later on. So you don't have to pay full price for ground beef in between either a sales cycle or getting it at your regular grocery store at a higher price than the warehouse store. So saving that money, we are all about it. Finally, I'm all about helping you be more efficient in the kitchen and doing kind of this bulk meal prep style. Hopefully that is eye-opening to you and helpful to you in your kitchen. Please like and subscribe to the $5 Little Dinners channel here on YouTube. We are always putting out new great cooking lesson videos, how-tos, saving money tips, strategies like this. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode.